Right, fantastic. So we've reached the end of our direct-to-consumer overview. We've had a series of presentations, case studies, a fireside chat, and now we have a panel extraordinaire to pull it all together and tell us what's going to happen. So just to get the ball rolling, and I have to tell you our time is going to be a bit compressed, I'm sorry. Could I ask you to just very briefly go through and tell people who you are and what you do, what your organization does? Start with you, Jill.
Thanks, Ingrid. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jill Grinda. I'm Commercial Director for Africa MediaWorks. Africa MediaWorks is the parent company of an African entertainment channel called Yanga, which launched on Sky and Freesat last year. And quite conversely, we decided to launch a linear channel in this OTT environment. Some people thought we were a bit crazy, but we can discuss that a little bit more throughout the panel.
Fantastic. Bill?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm Bill Gash. I'm Sales Director for CSG for Ascendant for Internet TV in EMEA. We're a business partner to about 24 leading service provider brands and media companies.
Okay, and what does the company do exactly?
How long have we got? Well,
in 30 seconds or less.
Okay, 30 seconds. So if you look across all of those sectors, service providers, so telco, pay TV operators, media brands, sports organisations, they're all at some level transforming to becoming digital brands.
Yes.
We provide a set of solutions that allow them to better engage today's digital consumer, operate within a far more connected, sort of federated economy. We talk about sort of member models, we've got a lot of points on that, and really it's how you drive engagement, loyalty, and monetize your assets, whether that's premium, live, or on-demand video specifically, but also digital services.
Would you say you're more a technology company or
we're a software
company? So it's a technology
yes.
bit, so it's the bit that kind of makes it all stick together.
That's right, it's a cloud-based platform offered on a software as a service business model.
Great,
so we can
fantastic.
explain that in more detail.
Niels?
My name is Niels. I'm the Chief Product Officer for XITE. XITE started out already 10 years ago as a linear video business, focusing on music videos, providing services to content providers, to operators. Launched in Northwest Europe in the beginning, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, expanded in recent years to the Middle East, the US and Canada. XITE's always been a very technology-focused company, so where new technologies like video on demand or eventually apps became available on operator devices, been quick to jump on that to be able to basically create the ultimate immersive music video on-demand experience that we've always envisaged. So this is our core product that we're putting out there on the market at the moment, where we want to get a global audience for, which is where direct-to-consumer comes in.
Maciej, tell us about your world.
My name is Maciej Gozdowski. I'm the Managing Director of player.pl. This is the biggest and the most engagement OTT service in Poland. We are the part of the Discovery Group right now, but initially we was the local broadcaster, so Poland's local broadcaster, and we starting with aggregate our content from our antennas, and right now we aggregate content from the different vendors, I could say, also for Viacom, for MTV, from HBO, Canal Plus, as well as our own.
So just to recap the composition of our panel, if you like, we have two niche genre content companies, is that fair to say? So one focused on targeting a particular community and audience and launching from a traditional broadcast model. We have another genre-focused business focused on music, but describing itself as technology-driven, which is interesting. We have a technology player that sort of glues it all together and makes it work. And then we have an OTT company that has grown out of an existing national broadcaster, TVN, or media company in Poland, now owned by Discovery, so part of a global group, and also working with third-party content providers. So some quite contrasting perspectives, let's call it. So I'd like to start with asking Jill, Niels, and Maciej to talk to us a little bit about where they see direct-to-consumer fitting into the world and strategies that they're operating in. So I don't know which one of you wants to jump in first, but I'll let you decide. Jill, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, so our channel is aimed at the African diaspora. We launched here in the UK because there is quite a significant African diaspora here. But obviously there's a market in Africa for our content as well. And Africa is a huge opportunity, and I really think it's the next frontier. But direct-to-consumer in Africa is slightly problematic in that there's infrastructure issues, there's piracy issues, Nigeria in particular, where our target audience is primarily focused at. There are huge issues with, it's a cash-based economy, so payment options are a challenge. So for us to go direct to consumer there is somewhat challenging right now, but there is a huge opportunity there for OTT platforms, and the telcos tend to have the power there for this reason, and I think it's a market that will go direct to mobile rather than a desktop or a laptop.
Interesting.
Functionality. So it's a challenge. We have launched, as I said, on a traditional basis on Sky and FreeSat, but we are experimenting with direct-to-consumer via live streaming options. For example, we have agreements with concert promoters where we're live streaming Afrobeats concerts on a pay-per-view basis. So we're going into that direct-to-consumer area, but we're doing it little by little.
And it's interesting that you've raised live in the context of direct-to-consumer, because historically, I guess, we've associated direct-to-consumer, on-demand, OTT with non-live content, and that's sort of been the remit of the, let's call them traditional broadcasters, and the safe place that will sustain them through everything else. But let's bring in Maciej at this point, because Maciej, you have some interesting well, actually, you're doing a lot of interesting things in terms of pushing boundaries, but talk to us a bit about what you're doing with D2C, and also tell us a bit about what you're doing in the live space with D2C.
So about D2C, it was for us that was very clear from the beginning that is the opportunity for us to show our content in this different environment and shifting the behaviors of the customers. We truly believe from the very beginning that will be many players in the market which they show their content, they mix their content, and if we put the content to their solution, for example, Google or Amazon, we will be just only a piece of the content which they have, and we probably don't have chance to promote it. Even if we will produce the great content, it will be a problem to promote it.
The discovery is the challenge.
So that was the initial thought, that we believe that the direct-to-consumer approach will be very helpful. If we have great content, we have the opportunity to convince customers to stay with us, to aggregate content from different vendors, to show also this content on our environment. That was the first one. And that was, as you said, starting from, I could say, catch-up that was on demand. And right now we are going to live TV, linear TV. This is something which I didn't expect even that will happen 2 years ago. But for example, for the next 90 days, we showing we have Big Brother in Poland right here. On TV and main antenna, there is a show which is showing 2 times a day, but live stream from the 4 cameras and the special events are only on the player. So it's showing how it's changing this
so it's taking over
thinking.
The live space.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. Niels, tell us about your strategy around D2C, if you have one.
Well, from our perspective, it's really a distribution/scaling play. So we've always been providing service to operators via the CPS model, which is a great model once you can get it. But in these days of declining content budgets, it's not easy for also a smaller Dutch company to break through in the bigger countries like the US. And all of a sudden, when you bring D2C, and in our case specifically freemium model, to the same operators and OTT partners that we've been talking to, all of a sudden the doors are wide open, because they can still get the product that we've shown them and that they love, but now they don't have to guarantee us a big bag of CPS, but rather they're sharing in the revenues that their customers are bringing us and that we are sharing with them.
Interesting. So it's about being, I guess, creative around the business model.
Yep.
In a way to deploy a strategy.
And thereby getting distribution.
Yeah. So Bill, hearing all of these quite contrasting strategies, actually, you're immersed in this ecosystem, you're talking to all the participants. I'd love to hear your reactions to what you're hearing. And also, if you could tell us a bit about where you think the operators fit in this, because we haven't talked much about the operators this morning. It would be interesting to see how they fit in.
Okay, so I don't know, I don't expect people to recognise CSG, we're a B2B technology company. And a lot of the time, even our biggest clients will say, well, actually, we'll just take the credit for this great service and we're sitting in the background. So if you are interested in knowing more about what we do, we've got a stand. But if you look at what we do with a lot of our clients, they are making this move towards transformation. For a lot of those organisations, they're really looking very hard at their business in terms of what they want to invest in the future, partly because there's a lot of opportunity out there. Let's not concentrate too much on the negative and the challenges. There's a huge opportunity out there. There's an opportunity for existing service providers to retain their existing customers, serve them better and make more money from that audience over time, and look at lifetime customer value, and then land new services to attract new digital consumers. And we're working with brands like TalkTalk in the UK, for example, which are very much engaged in supporting that experience using our solutions. The operators, I think, are moving away from thinking about we've got to be a content destination to becoming this aggregator role. And consequently, they're starting, as Nick pointed out in his presentation for Hopster, looking at more and more OT services they can bring as part of the bundle or as more of an even a la carte mode to their end customers, because they want to be a destination where more of what the consumer wants to see is in one place. But that's very complex and challenging because most of those organisations are rigidly stuck to legacy infrastructure, which has served them very well when they were doing sort of voice, text and data or basic pay TV services, less well when they want to create a very, very flexible, agile, scalable digital business where they can plug in new services, give clients more flexibility, more control. So I think there's a lot of opportunity if you look at what the telco or the mobile operators and even the pay TV companies are doing now in terms of embracing third-party services. But for the OTT services, the SVOD providers, you've got to think very carefully about what you want to invest in terms of technology infrastructure, particularly where you want to be able to work with those organisations and get to scale. I think we talked about iFlix, I can expand on that later.
So cost of deployment, return on investment on that deployment.
Correct.
And listening to you talk and thinking about some of the themes that have emerged through this morning, we've talked about statistics about how many SVOD subscriptions a household can sustain, but putting that aside for a moment, if you start going into AVOD and freemium and hybrid models and all that sort of thing, you're still creating a lot of noise in the consumer world and interface and a lot of potential touch points with the consumer. Do you think, and this is a question for all of you, do you think at some point the market will simply get far too crowded for anyone, any consumer to really navigate through? And I guess Nick talked about discovery in his session. Does it have to somehow re-aggregate, reconsolidate, not necessarily in terms of corporate entities, but at least consumer offerings? What do you think the trend is going to be in that space? Niels, you're looking at me like you have a view on this.
No, Jim Barksdale famously said there's only two ways to make money, which is by bundling or unbundling. So you saw in the beginning of the TV space, you saw things being bundled. You now see a bit of an unbundling movement. Lots of companies are going D2C. It is creating a bit of a fragmented ecosystem with lots of customer touch points, lots of options, lots of brands out there, lots of commercial models. So I think that there will be probably from the existing operators, but also from the Apples and Amazons and Rokus of the world, more new style bundles that don't necessarily contain a couple of buckets of content, a bucket of linear, a bucket of replay or catch-up, a bucket of on-demand and some apps, but more bundles focused on content experiences and maybe focused on certain target audiences. So if you want a kids offering, you maybe partner with Hopster. If you want a music offering, you can partner with us. So these new style bundles will contain a mix of very integrated, maybe linear channel offerings, but also lightly integrated services, and maybe from the Hopsters or the Netflixes or from the XITEs.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the audience gets an opportunity to ask questions, and we are quite pressed for time. So could I open the panel to audience questions? There's one at the back there, if we could get a microphone there.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. This is Manish Upadhyay from Tech Mahindra. I see a lot of telcos, they're also going on the content aggregation using the telco media convergence journeys and use cases. How does it impact you?
Who wants to take that one?
I didn't hear the question.
Do you mind?
Okay, I'll repeat the question.
The question was about mobile operators getting into the content aggregation business and what impact that has on you. Is that a fair summary of
Yes,
the question?
that's right. Yeah.
So, if I may, so
Sure.
we had the situation here there in Poland that the T-Mobile, for example, want to have their own OTT service Play, and Orange, everyone want. The question is, in the end, who could deliver them content in the best way? That's the question. And from our perspective, if we could, as I mentioned before, we could be an aggregator and give the own, I could say, application, then we should just combine their skills with our skills. That they know how to upsell customers. We know how to produce the content and how to, from the user experience, give the content to the end customer. And
So opportunity for collaboration is what you're saying.
I don't think the consumer cares how they get it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a pipe into the house. I mean, you know what? They really don't care how they get it. They just want life to be easy for them and to get the content that they really want, that they can't get elsewhere.
Yeah, I think mobile is just another platform. Of course, it's huge. It is more difficult because on TV there is the possibility through this user experiences to create something harmonious, whereas on the usual mobile device you have different sets of apps that are more difficult to string together. And that's also in our discussions with mobile operators of the difficulty where they say, we have an application, can you not be part of an application, which if you're a linear channel is easier to do. If you're a more on-demand UX-focused experience, you have to kind of squeeze your UX into their UX, which is not an easy thing to do.
I think the point right to whose benefits or how do they benefit, the telcos certainly have to go down this road. They have to see themselves as providing a wider set of digital services. I think the challenge comes for the OTT operators is what happens in terms of who owns the customer. And the challenge is basically if you're always going to have an intermediary between whether it's the app store or the device manufacturer or the telco or the mobile operator, the pay TV company, the risk is you're growing your business, but you're completely one step removed from the end customer. And ultimately, your goal should be to own the customer. And so a lot of our focus is helping our clients use like a Trojan horse strategy to grow with the telco, get into markets, scale businesses rapidly, but actually retain an anonymized profile of that customer so that the consumer leaves the mobile operator, they can go back into the OTT service and carry on where they left off as a direct consumer.
And I think you've touched on a huge point in all of this. You know, as we talk about partnerships and collaborations and all that sort of stuff, there's still this huge elephant in the room of who owns this customer. And that, I think, remains a significant issue. We could spend hours debating that. Unfortunately, we don't have the time, but thank you for raising that. Any other questions in the audience? We probably have time for one or two more. No?
Okay.
Well, then I would like to wrap up with a final question. In the world that we're seeing unfold, and if we look out over the next 5-10 years, is this going to be a world where ultimately everything is D2C, whether it's live, on demand or whatever? Will it all be D2C? Or will D2C be something that sits adjacently to existing traditional broadcast as we know and love it? Or will it be something entirely different? 30 seconds or less.
I think we'll see a hybrid. I don't think everybody can go D2C. I mean, I think, as someone mentioned earlier, it's a great opportunity for niche channels, but also there are huge investment costs. I mean, if you look at how much Disney's paying to invest in D2C and also the opportunity cost, I mean, they're going to lose an enormous amount of revenue from the platforms that is currently existing, distributing their content. I think we're going to have to see a hybrid model.
Hybrid. Bill, what do you say?
I think there's no one answer to that one. I think it's really going to come down to consumers constantly making choices about, does this work for me? Does this brand resonate with me as an individual? Do the service they provide serve the needs I have on a daily basis? Is it convenient, simple to use, easy, affordable? And that could be services brought to me by a telco and all the other services coming under that umbrella, or it could be a brand like Formula One saying, well, I'm a Formula One fan, I really want to follow that, and I'll go direct to the provider of that service.
So hybrid, consumer will decide. Niels, what do you say?
I think everybody will have a D2C play. I think the costs are going to go to be able to offer D2C player going down and down and down. It's still a significant investment, but I think costs will go down. And I think there are many providers here that offer services turnkey that you can talk to about that. But everybody will need to have a D2C play. But like I said, there will definitely be bundles.
There'll be bundles.
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be hybrid as well, I guess, is what you're saying. 2 hybrids and a consumer decides.
Hybrid,
Maciej, you
hybrid
have the
for
last
sure.
word.
Hybrid for sure, but I think what is the most important is the data-driven. This is something which we all need. So data is something which we need, and that everyone will push the customers to be a member, as Roma mentioned, that we could have millions of members, but only few subscribers, and it also makes sense for us, because as long as we know how the customer reacts for our content, that is the crucial.
So you say consumer decides as well. We have 2 hybrids and 2 consumer decides. So there we go, you heard it here. On that note, I'm going to bring this part of the conference to an end. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us. I think it's been absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
So please join me in thanking this panel.